one, problem in the chapter, you know, listing all the chapter, each area, chapter, like, what would you think the number one problem would be for the
Or you like a Greek sign, right?
Recruitment. The school of mine is a small school, isn't it?
It's the one thing that every, you know, the fraternity has been known for, you know, since we started. The one area that seems to always be small, at least the fraternity.
I was just
The weakest.
Okay.
Social.
numbers. Thank you.
Social. The women come over, and they, you know, and they invite me, they invite me to the home, and then, you know, they stand around the corner, and there's women come in, and they don't talk to them. The women talk to themselves, then they leave, and, you know, they laugh. Like I said, I've dealt with one of the issues. I mean, I dealt, I was with, I was sleeping on the floor, and I was just, you know, I was so tired, and they had me see 25 guys.
Hey, Mike, we're going to sit.
Welcome to Year 2 Motivational Speaker. I'm Mark Denisio, Big Part Human Delta. I'd like to thank Oak Lead also for sponsoring this event with us. I'd also like to remind everybody to be there after this at BG House for the reception of Jim Timmon. And here's a little history about Jim Timmon. He's a graduate of Michigan State University. He's developed 3 national programs dealing with youth, women, and returning veterans. He's appeared on the ABC, NBC, and CBS National News, The Today Show, Howard Magazine, National Media Magazine, and the Charles Crawl Morning Show, and the Floyd Free Show. He's been featured in Newsweek, USA Today, Business Week, Chicago Sun-Times, Washington Post, the LA Times, and Detroit Free Press. He's invited by 14 world leaders to talk about the breakdown of families, for the subject of a half-hour documentary show nationwide in Japan. Tim believes in balance in his life, and so has done such diverse things as being a circus clown, a rodeo rider, a symphony musician, cake decorator, and a parade enthusiast. He spent a summer working as a family relief worker in Ethiopia. He's also spent a summer as a roadie in the rock group Journey. And just recently, he's passed a milestone speaking with more than 2 million students in more than 1,500 schools worldwide, and he's spoken at more than 100 campuses across the nation. Please welcome Jim Timmon.
Why was it so difficult for some of you in the room to say that you were the most
important person that you knew. Virtually every one of you here tonight can influence thousands of people in your life. What are you going to be able to give to somebody if you don't feel good enough about yourselves to give them something? I was coming back from Chicago after being on the road for 5 straight days, working at this level of intensity to groups of 1,000 or more. And I just wanted some peace and quiet. I just wanted to be alone. My voice was shot. I found this restaurant 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. All the lunchtime crowd had gone. Grabbed the newspaper, walked all the way down to the last seat at the counter, and literally wanted to tune out the world. Didn't want to talk to one person. And I'm sitting in there reading the newspaper, and I happen to glance out of the corner of my eye. A guy walked in. He could have picked any seat at the counter, anyone. Instead, what he does is he walks all the way down and sits down right next to me and starts talking. I got real uncomfortable. I thought, what does this guy want from me? What could he possibly want? Well, I kept on tuning him out. He kept on talking. And you know how everyone, sometimes a word or a phrase or a gesture catches you? That's what happened with this guy. Turned out he was 36 years old. He had built a small business in Northern California, computer business, into a multi-million-dollar business. 4 weeks before he met me, he walked into his doctor's office for a routine annual company physical. Doctor called this guy up 3 days later, told him he had leukemia, less than 6 months to live. This guy's just blown away. He had all the stuff he could possibly want. All the toys. He had a beautiful home on the side of the mountain in Carmel, overlooking the Pacific. He had the cars, the boats, everything he could possibly want. Now he didn't have the time to be able to enjoy any of these things. And he did something to me that was incredibly courageous. He decided what he was going to do was to take off, sell everything in the world that he owned, take off, just to get a chance to see the things he didn't get a chance to see working his 16, 18-hour days. And certainly talking to people like me. And I was so moved, so touched by this guy, that I actually wound up at the end of the lunch, getting up and giving this guy a hug, wishing him good luck, knowing that I would never, ever see this guy again as long as I lived. I walked out to my car, sat behind the steering wheel, and found myself crying. In 1 hour's time, this man influenced me more than people who have been in my life for 30 years. Every one of you here tonight has a possibility. What are you going to be able to give to somebody if you don't feel good enough about yourselves to give them something? The unfortunate thing, and you'll look at somebody who's truly guilty of this, is that we are all so busy allowing other people to dictate how we should feel about ourselves that we can't see our own value. Let me show you something. First name. Catherine. Catherine, let's assume, Catherine, that everyone here tonight, that we all got together and we decided that you were absolutely the ugliest person that we had ever seen. So incredibly ugly, Catherine, and no matter where you went, people whispered behind your back. When you went to the reception afterwards, people kept on whispering. When you went back to the house, people kept on whispering, and that kept on going. That kept on going no matter when. Even when you went home for the weekend, parents locked in the bedroom for 2 hours, you'd show a friend of the other. Tell me, Captain, I'm watching you get real red-faced, get real uncomfortable, get really embarrassed. Tell me, Captain, how do you feel about people tell you you're ugly? Not good. Actually, everyone, I picked on Catherine because Catherine's really attractive. Catherine, let's take the complete opposite side. Let's assume we all get together and say, wow, Catherine's a great friend. She's always there when I need her. She always seems to care. She always understands. How do you feel about people tell you you're great? Makes you feel wanted and cared about. Everyone, what have we done to Catherine in the span of 30 seconds? We've taken her from feeling not so great about herself to at least feeling wanted about herself, just because all of you guys have decided that's how she should feel. And you buy into it. You allow it to happen. Every time I tell this next story, it's just too painful. When I was outside pacing around, preparing for the program tonight, I just relived this. I got to Michigan 12 years ago. I had gone to school there, but most of my friends had scattered around the country. My parents had been divorced since I was 15, so I have no sense of family. And I met this family in Michigan that had 5 children, age ranged 19 to 14. And they became the family I always wanted, that I always needed. I would find any excuse, any reason to go over their house. Holidays, special occasions, anything. I just needed that sense of belonging. I needed to have that sense of family unit that I missed all my life. And there was always a key left underneath the map. There was always a place there for me. I felt like this was my family. 5 years ago, I noticed something happening in that family. Couldn't put my finger on it, didn't really know what it was. Every time I go over their house, they were always putting down their 14-year-old son. Why can't you be more like your brother and sister? Why can't you get better grades? Why can't you be on time? All these string of whys. At first, this boy pulled back and real uncomfortable. Sometimes he'd just get angry. Sometimes he would just get up and leave. 3 years ago, last month, mother and father came back to a party about 1 o'clock in the morning. They walked through the front door. The bathroom door was locked. They broke down the bathroom door. This 14-year-old boy had hung himself in the shower, and there's a big note on the outside of the door. Said, "But you didn't like me anyway." And you can feel my anger now. It doesn't go away. It doesn't go away. I can't bring that boy back. I can't tell him he's okay. He's history. He's not going to influence one more person in his life except for the fact that he died. And I miss him terribly. Time heals those wounds, but what it doesn't heal for me personally is what a waste. What a waste. We are all so busy allowing other people to dictate how we should feel about ourselves that we can't see our own value. Let me show you something. If you could wake up on Christmas morning with any car that you always dreamt about sitting in your driveway, what kind of car would you want? Any car that you always dreamt about. Ferrari, tell me what color you want the Ferrari. Red. Christmas morning, any car sitting in your driveway that you always dreamt about, what kind of car would you want? Ferrari also? What color would you want that? Black. Christmas morning, any car sitting in your driveway. What kind of car would you want? Corvette? Tell me what color you want a Corvette. Red. Okay? Let's for a minute create the ultimate for the 3 of you guys. Let's create the ultimate. Let's assume that the 3 of you guys really own these cars. And they're the best thing in the world you own, okay? And you've taken a lot of extra time in the last month. The weather's starting to turn. You've polished up the cars. You've done major engine work. And you've driven the cars here tonight. Okay? And they're in the parking lot. And when I'm through speaking, you've got the keys in your pocket. You're going to pick somebody here tonight that you really care about. And you love these cars. They're the best you own. They're the best thing you own. And all 3 of those cars are sitting right next to each other in the parking lot. Let's take it one step further, guys. Let's assume that I'm driving through the parking lot with this enormous crane with a wrecking ball on the crane. And I get to your Ferrari, easily a $150,000 car, and I take the wrecking ball and I swing it back and wham! Rip off the entire front end of that car. So the parts are all over the lot. Drop them one time on the top of that, so the parts are scattered even more. Move over to your Ferrari, also $150,000. Take the wrecking ball, just rip off the side doors, just rip them off. Drop it on the top of that car so the parts are all over the lot. Move over to your Corvette, $50,000 at the shows these days. Take the wrecking ball, I swing it back, and I go wham, 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 like a riveter. So if there was a back seat to that Corvette, it's now the front seat of the Corvette. There's no insurance on these cars, guys. None whatsoever. You got 41 months of payments left. In the case of at least 2 of the Ferraris, easily $2 grand a month, maybe more. Maybe more. You guys are standing in front of the wreckage of your cars, looking at each other and surely glaring back at me. I'm going to get into my car, and as I pass the 3 of you guys pulling out of the parking lot, I'm going to smile and wave to you guys pulling out of that parking lot. Okay? Let's assume no one was going to come down on you for anything. There was no right or wrong, no judgment issues, 100% clean slate. No conscience, nothing was ever going to happen to you in terms of repercussions. Nothing whatsoever. Even in your mind was going to be wiped out as well. What would you want to do to me physically before I got out of that parking lot? Castrate me? Okay. Fairly scary group here, isn't it? Okay? No one's going to come down on you for anything. There's no right or wrong, no judgment issues. Again, clean slate, even conscience-wise. What would you want to do to me physically before I got out of that parking lot? What would you want to do to me physically? Pound me a few times, what would you want to use? Baseball bat, okay. Not much left for you. I mean, so far we got castration and a baseball bat. Again, clean slate, total wipeout. What would you want to do to me physically before I got out of the parking lot? I'd be a dead man. What would you want to use? Sledgehammer. Okay? I want the 3 of you, and I want everybody else in the room tonight, I want you to stop and think about this one. Guys, if these cars were the only reason you had friends, if these cars were the only reason people liked you for, if these cars were the only image that everybody else in the world saw you through, I've actually just destroyed the 3 of you guys. Your history, you are no more. So everyone, if you don't feel good from the inside, if you need the stuff in your lives to make you feel good about yourselves, somebody at some point in your lives can take it all away. It's just that simple. It's just that simple. This point, interestingly enough, was never driven home for me clearer than 12 years ago when I got a chance to work in the earthquake area outside of Naples, Italy. Most of you here tonight have been following the earthquakes in Japan, certainly California, and I happened to be in San Francisco speaking 6.5 years ago, so I was in the middle of that one, so I know what it feels like. But I have to tell you that nothing could have prepared me for what I saw outside of Naples, Italy, 12 years ago. Everything that people own for 100 square miles, lives, houses, property, cars, was gone in 38 seconds. 38 seconds. Imagine all of you here tonight, you left your residence, wherever that may be, maybe something in the driveway caught your eye, maybe you forgot something on the table in your room. Imagine coming back tonight when nothing that you have when you left this morning is still standing. And now you know what these people felt like. And I used to go in and do community organizing. I worked with groups of 6 or 8 people at a time, and I would try to get them to figure out how they could rebuild their village. And I would ask them the same questions. Why? Why would you take a chance and rebuild your village? You're right on an earthquake fault line. This could happen again in 10 days, 10 months, 10 years, but it's surely going to happen again. You know, everyone heard the same answers, different words. The same answers for me. My friends live here. My family lives down the road. I love living in this village. And I read between the lines, what these people were really saying to me was, my friends and family come first in my life, and the things that I own second. Many of you here tonight are saying, this guy's crazy. I get all the stuff I want now, and then I'll deal with the priority of people first, things second. So let me ask all of you in the room a question. If you can answer this question, I am willing willing to buy you dinner, any place of your choice. Any place of your choice. How do you know? How do you know that you don't only have 6 months to live? How do you know that you don't only have 6 months to live? I was speaking at a college in California not more than 2 months ago. A 19-year-old woman who was supposed to have been at that program was killed the night before, coming back from a basketball game in the fog. I spoke out of a high school near where I live. Captain of the football team walked into school one day. 2 friends were fighting with another guy. He went to break up that fight. Somebody put a knife into his gut, and he died on the way to the hospital. I was just out at the memorial today, walking along the fence. I am sure all those people, 168 people, as well as those 2 people, did not get up that morning and say, "This is the last day of the rest of my life." I am sure that all those people did not get up that morning and say, "This is the last day of the rest of my life." There are no guarantees. No guarantees. Raise your hand in the room if you've been to a funeral in the last year. My hand also. Now I want you to stop and think about this one. And reach into your heart. Raise your hand again if you went to that funeral in the last year of somebody who you thought died too young or died before their time. My hand also. You know, it's devastating for all of us here, obviously myself included. You know, we magically believe that when we tell a friend of ours, "I'll see you in class tomorrow, I'll talk to you on the phone tonight, I'll meet you later," that we actually expect that that person is going to be there in our lives. And when someone in our life breaks the chain, every one of us here tonight realizes we're only on borrowed time. So many of you are waiting for the time in your life to put the priority of friends and family right up there. Maybe, just maybe, you won't have that time. And as I said before, we're all so busy allowing other people to tell us whether we're important or not, that we can't see our own value. Let me show you something. Anybody here have a flat dollar bill? Anybody? Got a 5? Can you stand up for a second? Stand up. Can you stand up? Would you? Here. You know, everyone, I know people that have compromised their entire lives for this. I know people that have sold out for this. I'm not. So that any of you here tonight leave the least bit unclear, I am not saying that that's not important. We run a whole society by this. I'm simply saying to every one of you here tonight who've got some major choices coming up in your life, if this is the only thing in your life that motivates you, if this is the only thing in your life you get up every day for, if that's the only thing in your life that has the slightest bit of meaning, there is never going to be enough of it. Never. Let me show you something. Best guess in this. How many people in your life do you know that are truly, truly fulfilled and happy in their lives? Best guess. 10? And in your life, how many people do you know? Hundreds? Okay? Best guess, please. How many people in your life do you know truly fulfilled and happy? 5? And in your life, also hundreds? Okay? Best guess on this. How many people in your life do you know truly fulfilled and happy in their life? Less than 10, okay? And also in your life, hundreds as well, right? You know what's interesting? Is that these odds don't seem to change. Collectively, between 3 people, we've got a grand total of 25 or less that they know that are truly fulfilled and happy in their lives, as opposed to hundreds, if not thousands of people that they know. Want to know what that means for all of you here tonight based on those odds? There's approximately 300 of you in this room. Based on those odds, maybe in this whole room, 5 of you. 5 of you here tonight are going to be truly fulfilled and happy in their lives. Is it going to be you? 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 Or you? Or you? Who knows? And who knows how much time some of you have got to deal with this? Again, tonight we're talking about no guarantees. No guarantees. Raise your hand in the room if you come from a divorced family. My hand also. Now, help me out. My voice gets a little shy. Raise your hand individually, any of you. Tell me, why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Lead the world now in divorce. There'll be 1.2 million this year in this country that will get divorced. Anybody? Why do you think there's so many divorces? Anyone? Guess first name.
Brooke.
I'm sorry? Brooke, thank you. Why do you think there's so many divorces? They think they can find something better someplace else. Anyone else? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Yes, first name. Don. Thanks, Don. Yes. People can't be happy with themselves, therefore it's really tough to get together with somebody. Anyone else? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Anyone? Anyone? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Yes, please, in the back. First name.
Christy.
Yes.
They give up too easy, just like a commitment, they rush in too fast.
They rush into it too fast, they give up too easy. Yep. Thank you, Christy. Anybody else? Why do you think there's so many divorces in this country today? Some of you are going to be challenged by that in your life. Anyone? Why do you think there's so many? Yes, what's your name? Mike, go. People are never satisfied. Always looking for something better. Thanks, Mike. That was really powerful. Anyone else? Well, that's exactly one of the couple reasons that I hear consistently. First name. Allison, yes. I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Yeah, some people outgrow the other person. And so they're on an upward track and the other person's stationary. Thank you. Anyone else? Why do you think there's so many divorces? I have a question for all of you. Think people really know each other before they get married? What's the first thing all of us in this room do when we meet somebody? We try to impress them, we try to tell them the best of who we are. Well, people fall in love on the basis of that impression, they get married on the basis of that impression, and then they wake up one day and a completely different person has emerged, somebody who they don't even know. I have a real good friend of mine in Detroit who's a divorce court judge. He says the biggest reason that people have to be in his courtroom is that the other person changed. The other person didn't change. The other person was in there in the first place. We're sometimes too busy wearing the mask. Can I have that introduction sheet? Thanks. This introduction sheet that Mike read at the beginning of his talk, it's not me, gang. It is not me. It's the things I did in my life. It's not the person who I am. The person who I am was in the hallway, was downstairs, was outside pacing back and forth, trying to get the courage to come out in front of all of you. And I speak to 150,000 people a year. You see, I changed schools 5 times between grade school and high school. And it left me with so many fears, so many insecurities. It's really tough for me to get out in front of a room full of people. It's more difficult for me to meet you one-to-one. If you had a party in this room and I didn't know any of you, chances are I'd walk through those doors, hope that one of you would make some eye contact, say hello, say something to me. If it didn't happen, maybe if you had some food, I'd go get some food. If no one spoke to me still, I'd wander around, keep waiting and waiting. And if it didn't happen at all, I would leave. Because it's too difficult for me to walk up to somebody and say, "Hi, my name is Jim," or say hello to somebody. Just a throwback to all the shyness of growing up. I was on a national speaking tour in Australia a year ago. I came back on a 747. It was just packed. And I was sitting in the center section of that plane, I remember, and there were people on either side of me. And I sat there for 10 and a half hours from Sydney to Honolulu. 10 and a half hours reading the same newspapers, same magazines, over and over again, hoping that the people on either side of me would just open up and say something. When that didn't happen, I was just too shut down. I couldn't turn to them and open up myself. I was a 7-letter athlete in high school. I carried an A- average. I was a class officer 4 years running, and I also tried to kill myself 3 times. 3 times I tried to kill myself because I was living off the image. I was so afraid if something happened on that football field when the smoke cleared for me, there'd be nobody there. Many of you here tonight are living off those same images. Many of you here tonight are living behind those same masks. Raise your hand in the room if you have a best friend. My hand also. Now raise your hand individually, any of you, and tell me, please, what makes that person a best friend to you? Anyone? What makes that person a best friend? Why? First name, yes. Laura, yes.
She cares about who I am, not what I do. She'll listen to anything I have to say.
She cares about who you are, not what you do, and she'll listen to anything that you have to say. Thank you. Anyone else? What makes that person a best friend? First name, please. Yes. She's a person that's there for you when no one else is. Thank you. Anyone else? What makes that person a best friend? Anybody? Yes. First name.
Jennifer?
Jennifer, yes.
She accepts me for who I am.
She accepts you for who you are. Absolutely. Anyone else? What makes probably the key to this whole program? It's the key to actually your whole relationship here. Yes, first name. And she gets sense when you're in trouble, and she does everything to support you when you are in trouble and lift you up. Anyone else? What makes that person your best friend? First name. Yes. Randy, go. No need to hide behind a mask. 100% safe. Safe. Anyone else? What makes that person a best friend? Anybody? Yes, first name.
Summer?
Yes.
She loves me and encourages me.
She loves you and encourages you. Just bottom line, simple. Anyone else? What makes that person a best friend? Anyone? Why didn't the half dozen of you that just spoke? Why don't you mention the grades that person held? Sports they played, cars they drove, money that they did or didn't have? Anybody? Doesn't matter? Not important? Why do we believe so much that it does matter and that it is important? Why do we believe so much that it does matter and that it is important? You know, when I played football, I used to run underneath this sign that was on the gym wall that said, "Power and prestige is real short-lived." I used to run underneath that sign, and I used to think that was absolutely ludicrous. Because in my family, power and prestige were really what was strived for. In my family, love was based on performance. So the more I performed, the greater the love. And there was always a fear. There was always a fear that what happens one day if I didn't perform, would there really be any love for me? And I used to run underneath this sign. I was flying to California 5 or 6 years ago. 5 or 6 years ago, I was flying to California, and I remember this sign. For some reason, it jumped out in my mind. And I knew that if I threw it out to an audience, that there's so much pulling us in different directions that it's really a struggle to understand that concept, because the world doesn't support it. So I want to bring it down to a gut level to any of you here tonight. To any of you here tonight. I'm willing to do this. I'm willing to give anybody here tonight, anyone, I'll give you my American Express card. You can get nuts for an evening with somebody that you care about. If anyone here tonight can name me the last 5 presidents of General Motors. I have to tell all of you that these men would be appalled that you didn't know who they were. They worked 18-hour days. They denied their family for weeks at a time. They slept at the top of the General Motors building so that they could pyramid to the most highly visible corporate office in the country, with the exception of Lee Iacocca and Bill Gates. And you guys don't even know who they are. It's short-lived. It's short-lived. And we struggle with what is important. Let me show you something else that's not important. If you were killed tonight on the way home in an automobile accident, and we were having a memorial service in this room for you, would you want people only to remember you for the Ferrari? Only? How do you want people to remember you? The kind of person that you were. If you were killed tonight on the way home in an automobile accident, we're having a memorial service in this room for you. Want people to only remember you for the Ferrari? How do you want people to remember you? He's a good guy. If you were killed tonight on the way home in an automobile accident, we were having a memorial service in this room for you. Want people to remember you for the Corvette? How do you want people to remember you? The person that you were and how you influenced other people. Isn't it interesting, everyone? Not more than 10 minutes ago, these 3 guys were prepared to castrate me. They were prepared to take a baseball bat and do major damage. They were prepared to take a sledgehammer and kill me. Over 3 cars they don't want to be remembered for. Isn't it interesting that they were prepared to kill me violently over 3 cars that they don't want to be remembered for? We complicate our lives. It is so simple. So simple. Stop, all of you. If you walk out of here with nothing else but this tonight, stop for 5 seconds and ask yourselves, how do you want the people in your life who you love and who love you to remember you? And put it up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. If some of you in this room tonight want to be remembered as a great friend, put that one up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. If some of you here tonight want to be remembered as a person who was there when people needed you, put that one up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. If some of you just want to be remembered as a person who cared, put that one up at the top of the list in your life and live it out. It's not the time that you live, it's the impact that you make. I spent 3 hours on that fence today reading the tributes to all the people who died suddenly at 9:02. Who walked in that building never knowing that that was going to be their last few minutes. But I read the tributes and how many people touched so many lives and made a difference in so many lives. That's it's at. That's where it's at. And hope against hope. Again, some of you have got the time to be able to live out what you would like to be remembered by. Again, no guarantees. I grew up in a macho family. I was a street kid in New York City. Ever since I was 7 or 8 years old, I was always told that it was weak, it was wrong, it was unmanly to share my feelings. And so consequently, never once in my whole life did I ever tell my mother or my father or my brother, never once that I loved them. And I would have given anything, anything in the world, for someone to have walked into a place where I was and asked me to raise my hand for my best friend. I would have given anything in the world to have been able to raise my hand for my father. I couldn't do it. See, my father was really effective. He knew exactly how to shut me down. Every time I go to open up, he would say, "Hey, Jim, I can't be bothered. Don't ever let me see you cry. Go back to your room." And so I kept stuffing my feelings down further and further and further until there was no place to go. No place to go. Several years ago, I had the biggest turn happen in my whole life. I was speaking at a school, and somebody in the middle of my program pulled me off and said, "Jim, you got some serious problems. We just got a phone call. You better take care of it." Turned out my father had a series of heart attacks, 3 in succession. I can tell all of you here tonight, I don't remember finishing the program. I remember getting on the first plane from Detroit to New York, walking into a hospital room and seeing my father laid out in a coma, intravenous bottles coming out, tubes sticking out all over. And my first instinct for this man was I walked over and I grabbed his hands. I grabbed his hands. And I wanted at that moment to tell this man that I loved him. I wanted to tell him he was special. I wanted to tell him he had made a difference in my life. Couldn't do it. All the old tapes kept playing in my head. It's not safe. Don't say it. It's going to hurt you in some way. It's going to put you down. I sat at his bedside for 2 days trying to find the courage. Always got stuck in my throat. The fear took over. I watched him move in and out of a coma, sometimes for a minute or two, sometimes a couple minutes more. And each time he opened up his eyes, there was another opportunity to jump on it, and each time he couldn't find the courage. Instead, what I said to him was, "Dad, do you need anything? Do you want a drink of water? Do you want me to get the nurse?" In my gut, my heart, I wanted to tell him I loved him. His life was hanging by a thread. I couldn't find it. I couldn't find it. My father survived the heart attacks. Grace of God, strength of the man, however you choose to see it. And ironically, and I never thought this would happen, I got a second chance. My father was out of the hospital about 10 days. I got a last-minute speaking engagement in New York City, and I called my father up and I said, "Dad, I didn't get a chance to say something in the hospital. I need to tell you now. Let's get together for dinner, you and I. It's really important." Well, everyone, he gave me the perfect out. He said, "Jim, I got dinner plans. What about lunch?" I had programs to do. I had television commitments. I had meetings. I was flying in. First thing that morning, I was going to fly out on the 10:30 flight back to Detroit that night. I was going to see my father for just a few minutes on the way back out to the airport. I rearranged my entire schedule, everything, to get to the restaurant a half an hour early to tell him for the first time in my whole life that I loved him. And I was petrified. I sat in that restaurant doing mind games. You know how sometimes you have perfect words, words that just absolutely capture somebody's heart. That's what I was looking for that day. What words were going to make my father not put me down? What words were going to make my father not laugh at me? What words were going to make my father not be silent, which was my father's most effective weapon, and just shut me down instantly? I sat in that restaurant, and finally, I just was so nervous. I got up and I started walking around the block, just trying to get my courage up. I completely lost track of time. I glanced over at one of the buildings and looked at the clock and realized I was 15 minutes late. I tore back in that restaurant, knowing my father, who runs his whole life by his watch, would surely be sitting there. And there he was. And the first thing he did was jam me, put his finger in my face. And he said, "Why are you 15 minutes late? You know I've only got an hour for lunch. When are you going to be on time?" I looked at this man and said, "No way. I'm not going to tell him I care. I lived this way all my life, being put down and feeling was being pushed aside. But I look back at my father, and there isn't one of us here tonight that hasn't seen death on somebody's face. And I knew there wasn't going to be a third chance for me. My father had lost 50 pounds since the heart attacks. The bones were coming through on his cheeks. His face had no color. I knew there wasn't going to be a third one. So I reached across the table again, and I grabbed his hands. And I said, Dad, thanks for waiting up till 2 o'clock in the morning when I didn't show up all night. Thanks for standing by me when I tore the cartilage in my knee. Could have finished the last 3 football games. A ton of guys came down on my back. Thanks for bailing me out, Dad. I really love you. And as I said, I really love you, I just said it above a whisper because I didn't want him to hear. I'm so scared of his reaction. But when I raised my head, it was the last reaction in the world I could have ever imagined. For the first time in my whole life, I never saw it at my grandfather's funeral. For the first time in my whole life, I watched my father cry. And all the stuff that was sitting inside of me for so long, I just let go. Just let go. I walked around the table and I grabbed this man and I held him and we sobbed together. I just couldn't stop crying. Just all the years of just pent up stuff that had been sitting inside me, eating away at me. I got together with my father the next morning for breakfast, and he told me something that just blew me out of the water. He said, Jim, I would have gone to my grave and not been able to tell you that I loved you. Because my grandfather told him there was wrong. All he was doing was passing that on to me. Just passing that on to me. Standing there holding him, crying, letting go of all this pain that had eaten me alive for so long, was at the top of the best moments I've ever had in my whole life. Of all the things that you heard in the introduction, they pale by comparison to this moment. I'm just standing there and letting go. Letting go. You know something? This is how we all started. This is how we all started perfectly. No history, no background. Nothing to bias us. And here's what happens. Here's all the hurt and anger and resentment and betrayal and violation that's happened to us in our lives. It's going to happen if I continue to pour. It's going to overflow. I want to show you this. Where in here is there room for love? Where's there room for love? All of us here tonight want someone in our lives to love us. There's no room in here to love. What do we need to do to get rid of some of this? Just to let go of some of this. We need to let go of some of this pain. That day was a gift to me. I gave that to myself. I took the courage that my father had never been able to let go and to let him know how much I loved him and needed to know how much he loved me. First time I ever told this story, I told it in a high school, and actually a young girl was moved to get up out of her seat to call her father, who was in the hospital, to tell him for the first time in 10 years that she loved him. First time in 10 years. And her father was so excited to hear her say that, said, come on over, I need to be with you. She asked to be excused, got over there, 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, stayed till 10:30, 11 o'clock that night. Her and her father just unloading all the stuff that was building inside of them. It was 2 hours past visiting time, and her father looked at her and said, you've been here all day, go home. She said, no, Dad. She said, we've never had this type of day. We've never been this close. We've always kept each other at a distance. She said, I need to be here when we get up in the morning. She said, please, let me stay here. He said, don't be silly. He says, this is the first day for us. He said, there'll be so many more days. She said, please, Dad. He said, make an old man happy, go home. I'll see you tomorrow. First thing. Come here first thing. Well, reluctantly, she went home. At 7:30 the next morning, her father died on the operating table. And I got a call from her the first day of grief to actually thank me. To thank me for giving her the courage to tell her father how much she cared. And the words were so powerful that I put them up my bulletin board. And I'm on the road traveling 6 months a year, but I put it on a 3x5 car and it's in my motel room as we speak. And the words that she said to me was, Jim, we had a lot of time together, and yet we had no time together. I spoke at another school. The young girl wasn't so lucky. She waited until after school to tell her father how much she cared. She raced home. There was an ambulance in the driveway. Her father, who had been cleaning out the garage, had dropped dead of a heart attack at 38 years old. 38 years old! And I got a call from her the first day of grief. And she said, Jim, I know you get a chance to talk to thousands of people in your life. Tell them not to wait. Tell them I waited a half an hour too long. There are many of you here tonight, who have friends not more than a few feet away from you. Family at home. People that really matter to you, that have been in your life, been there when you needed them, in some cases have saved your lives. And never once have you ever told that person that you cared about them. Never once. Live with the reality, as I do, that there is no guarantee that the person that you care about is going to make it home tonight. None whatsoever. As I have done in every program for the last 14 years, once a year I dedicate all my programs to a different person each year. Somebody who that year has been in my life, made a difference. And this particular year has saved my life. On March 19th, when I was 17 years old, I wanted out. I was screaming inside. Nobody heard me. I came home from track practice that night, not wanting to go on and wanted to take my life. My best friend in the world, Ricky Myers, called me up and said, Jim, it's not worth it. I really love you. Don't do it. That call saved my life. On the anniversary of that call, every year, I find Ricky Myers wherever he is in the country, and I thank him for the call. He lives in Florida. Last year was no exception. We teased, we joked, we laughed. Then all of a sudden there was silence on the other end of the line. I didn't know what it was. He said, I don't want you to hear this from my wife. He said, but I've got colon cancer and they've given me just a short time to live. I don't know what to say to him. Then I realized everything I'm trying to get all of you to see, I got to live out of my life. And I said to him, you've been my brother. You've been my best friend. You've been somebody that I trust. And I trust you with every feeling that I've had since you were young. I want to tell you how much I love you and how important you are to me. And you share the same with me. Sometimes I think this is going to get better. 6 days before Thanksgiving this year, I got a call at 4 o'clock in the morning. Myers had died. I want to dedicate all my programs. He just gave me the love about going. Dedicate all my programs. Somebody for me who was there when I needed him. And somebody who saved my life. There are those of you here tonight, you've got those people in your life. You've got those people in your life. Been there when you needed them, saved your lives. There's a sharing part of my program. Time doesn't permit it tonight, but I've seen incredible things happen in this part of my program. At UCLA, a young boy no more than 3 feet tall and cephalitic head, pencil-thin arms from birth defects, got up in front of a room full of people and said, why do you guys put me down? He said, I didn't mean to be born like this. He said, I go home at night, I don't want to go on anymore. He said, I need friends. Please be my friend. Please help me through this. He said, I need all of you. And when he got through speaking, 50 people were actually moved to get up out of their seats, to meet him in the center of the room, to tell him that they didn't realize how alone he felt, that they were trying to be more connected with him, that they were trying to be his friend, that they were trying to watch out for him. Came back up to the mic and said to the whole group, he said, "This doesn't change my appearance." He said, "I'll still be walking down the street, people will still look away." He said, "But when I'm in my room one night feeling alone, I'll remember that some of you care about me, and maybe you'll help me through." At a high school in Michigan, brother and sister, quadriplegic, paraplegic, brother's wheeled to the mic on the gym floor. He points to the corner of the room where his sister, who was considerably worse off than he was, points to the corner of the room where his sister, and he says, "I want to thank my sister for giving me the courage to keep on going after the car accident." And they wheeled his sister up to the mic, and they put their arms around each other. And everyone in that room got up on their feet and gave them a standing ovation. They had never seen such courage. Never. Biggest act of courage, though, bar none, in the 14 years that I've been speaking, happened at a school in Chicago. A young 16-year-old girl had been leaving school at 6 or 8 weeks before I got there. Nobody knew why. Half a day she was gone. All the rumors floating on around about her. She came up to the mic and said to 1,800 students, because I was afraid to tell all of you why I'm leaving after half a day. She said, "Now I'm more afraid of the reason why I'm leaving than I am of any of you here." She said, "I'm 16 years old." She said, 8 weeks ago I found out I've got cancer. I've been taking chemotherapy treatments. It's left me too sick to come back to school. She said, "I thought I could go it alone." She said, "I thought I could stop it." She said, "I thought I didn't need anybody." She said, "I was so wrong." She said, "I'm 16, I'm scared, I want to live." She said, "I realize I need all of you. Please be there for me. I need friends. I'm scared, I'm 16 years old, I want to live. I need all of you here." And when she got through speaking, she took off her wig and she's completely bald from the chemotherapy treatments. I had to get out of the way for 2 solid hours while 1,800 students lined up to cry with her, to care about her, to tell her that they would not let her go alone. 2 hours. I got a letter from her last Christmas. God willing, I hope as long as I'm on this earth, I got a letter from her every Christmas. And in the letter it said, "Jim, I don't know who's winning, the cancer or me, but my friends are helping me through." That's the key for all of you here tonight. You can remember this as 4 years of the toughest times you will ever have in your life, or 4 years of at least decent times. And the difference is the people around you who care about you. But I can't make those choices for you. See, interestingly enough, if this program had happened where I was, I'd be sitting in those seats, laughing and putting it down, wondering why I went home that night feeling alone. I spent most of my life like this. Don't get too close to me. Maybe you'll find out that I'm weak. Maybe you'll find out that I'm insecure. Maybe you'll find out that I'm afraid, and maybe you'll leave me. I spent most of my life like this when the very thing I wanted was this. But I was too afraid to let somebody in. Too afraid that maybe they'd walk in and see something that they didn't like. So I hid behind all those accomplishments. For some of you here tonight, this is going to last 5 minutes. Some of you never got it at all. For some of you, 5 days, 5 months, 5 years. For the very few of you here tonight, maybe you'll carry it with you the rest of your lives. But I can't make the choice for you. I've spent so much of my life pushing people away, keeping people away, living behind the mask, living behind all those accomplishments that when I finally figured it out and I opened my heart and I opened my arms up, there were people that said, "Hey, why did you wait so long, Jim, to let us in? Why did you wait so long to let us in?" Last November, I was speaking at a high school in Florida, and a young boy put a note in my pocket as I was leaving. And he said, "Jim, when you get a chance, read this. It's a tribute to my friend." I didn't think too much of it. I was going back to the hotel, and as I Reached in my pocket with something else, out fell this note, and I started reading it as I was driving. I pulled off the service drive and read it 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times more. I realized he had said everything I was trying to say to all of you. Full friendly pain. A good friend, yes, an exceptional friend. Someone to talk to, laugh with, confide in his smile. What a great smile. Grade school, junior high school, the best times of your life, most say. So far they're right. Lucky I was to have such a great friend. So many smiles, and the laughter. The plans we made him to college, I stayed home. When we get together, we'll drink some beer, laugh, smile, and offer honest advice. Now we can't, for we fell asleep behind the wheel. Oh, the pain, my stomach like a burning flame, it can't be true. We never said goodbye. The plans like sandcastles on the beach washed away. And oh, how I miss my buddy, on my mind like a good tune. I still think of the good times, I always will. The plans, well, they've fallen apart, and I've made do with new friends that smile and laugh. It's never the same, it never will be. The friendship we had was special, like ice cream on a hot summer day, and we never said goodbye. I wish for some of you here tonight who raise your hands, especially some of you here who lost people that you love in the Bible. I wish I could bring those people back in 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, so you can tell them what's in your heart. But obviously I can't. The next best thing I can do is to give you the gift of what I'm giving you here tonight, which is to let the people in your life know that you love them. See, that's what we all want. Bottom line, that's what we all want. But sometimes it's too frightening. Sometimes we're very effective at keeping people away and doing the dance. Very, very effective. It's so fragile. It is so fragile. And I don't want any of you here tonight to walk out the least bit unclear about what this program is about. This program is not about death. It's about time. The time that none of us is quite clear how much we have. The time to put the priority of friends and family right up there. The time to feel good enough about ourselves so that we can go out and live our own lives. I have to tell you that the Greek systems around the country are in trouble. They're in trouble. In 25 years, if there is not stopgap measures, what you have today will be no more. Because the need to belong to a family, the need to feel safe, the need to create that safety in your houses is so vital to your existence. And if you don't have it, then ask for it. And keep asking, and allow somebody in so that you can be open and vulnerable and real. It took me so long to let people in. First time I ever shared with people when I tried to take my own life, I thought, what am I doing? They're expecting me to be the speaker, and here I'm sharing my pain. Well, at a bottom line level, we all want somebody in our life who's real. And sometimes we're just too scared. But I have to say to you, every time something happens, I realize it's even more and more fragile. I got this letter several months ago. High school, I did. Dear Jim, I'd like to thank you for coming to our school. You've showed us all that life can be taken away as fast as it is given. The day after you had come, 3 people were involved in a car accident. 2 of them had died instantly, and the other is in the hospital. The girl that died was one of my good friends. She was only 17. The boy that died was from another school, so I didn't know him very well. I don't understand what is going on. I and many others had to go through 3 deaths in the past 2 months. Our school has gone through so much, but somehow these deaths have brought us all closer together. Now, I have to say to all of you that after speaking to over 2 million people, if I do nothing else in my life but inspire someone to write this next paragraph, and it's been an incredible run. Before, I was too afraid to tell anyone how I felt, but now I feel I need to before they are gone. You have made me appreciate life and to live each day as if it were the last. Thank you. Suzanne Schomer, Student Council President, Carsonville High School. Challenge from all of you here tonight. Challenge. 99% of my audiences are always from college audiences on down. Because I think you guys have got a chance. For some of us that have lived longer, there's like another brick that goes up again on the wall each year when we live. And after a while, the wall gets up so high, nobody gets through. You guys have a chance. But I can't make the choice. I push people away and spend so much of my life feeling that sense of aloneness that I don't want it anymore. The balance of the time that I have left, I'm going to open my heart wherever I can. And let people in wherever I can. At the end of our lives, we will not remember how much money we made, how many ball games we watched, or how many things we possessed. It will come back to us in a brilliant and blinding light. It's the quality of the relationships we form with those we love, our friends, our spouses, our children. 25 years ago, I got an opportunity to go on the road when the Beatles first made their national tour. I was a photographer. I was in Chicago, and John Lennon had put a full-page ad in the Chicago Tribune asking to meet with 75 aspiring songwriters in the hope that the Beatles would find a new song, take it to the top of the charts, make that person famous. In an auditorium that looked a lot like this on Northwestern University's campus, 75 people gathered, 5,000 had applied to be there that day. And Lennon, who was probably the softest spoken man I've ever heard, came up to the podium, came out of the side curtain, and barely above a whisper, he said to the whole room, he said, "I am no more talented than any of you." Nobody heard him. Nobody. I noticed the guy in the back was standing with a telephoto lens. Nobody had heard what he said. And Lennon, who realized that nobody had heard him, came back up to the mic in the loudest voice he could possibly muster. He said, "I am no more talented than any of you." Sure enough, a guy in the back of the room raised his hand and said, "Hey, John, how can you tell us we are nobodies? We are nobodies. The world is singing your music. Your concert's a standing room only. You're making a ton of money. How can you tell us we're nobodies?" He said, "The only difference between myself and you is if I've got a song inside, if I've got a dream in my gut, I can have somebody write it, somebody promote it, somebody play it, and hopefully somebody buy it. Every one of you here tonight has something special to offer. But it doesn't mean anything if all the people in your life get together to tell you how great you are. If you don't buy it inside." It's my hope that one of you, and I've had this hundreds of times, one of you will see me in an airport someplace, I'm always traveling, come up and tap me on the shoulder and say, "Hey Jim, I heard you speak 5, 10, 15 years ago. I want you to know I'm going after my dreams, feeling great about myself. Most of all, I'm giving to a whole lot of people in my life. And I'll walk away with an incredible smile on my face." Every one of you here tonight can make something happen in your lives. And none of you here tonight ever has to go it alone. None of you. I want to thank you so much tonight for touching my heart, for being an incredible audience. I love you very much. Thank you, dear. Before I forget, spot. I've been doing this a while. There's some scraps of some money on the floor. I've got some more in my pocket. For any of you in the room who chooses to, I'll tear off part of $1, part of $5, part of $10, whatever I've got. Long after you forget about this program, you forget about anything that you're feeling tonight, you forget about anything that made an impact as far as this evening goes. Take home a part of a bill, and if you're in your room one night saying, "Hey, nothing's working, Bob," pull it out and remember people first thing second, and none of you here tonight will ever be alone. None of you. I want to take a minute and thank my chapter here. It took a lot of energy to bring me in. The brothers that I met in the last couple of days couldn't have been more open, couldn't have been more caring, couldn't have been more loving. I'm innately a shy man, and so it's very difficult for me, and it always means so much when somebody takes a few minutes to just step up and, stick out the hand, give me a hug, whatever it takes. That means so much to me personally. I'm going to leave my address at the chapel. I take at least one day a week, no matter what my schedule is. And I get back to anybody who chooses to call me or write me. That's my commitment to this work. So if you just need an ear, you just need, you're struggling with some stuff, maybe some of this tonight just doesn't quite compute, it doesn't quite make sense, pick up the phone and call me. Most of all, look around you, look at the people who you care about. Most of all, give them a part of your heart. Bottom line, that's where it's all at. Bottom line. Again, I love all of you.